Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's jump right in. We're tackling AI agents in 2025 today.
Yeah, it feels like that's all anyone in tech is talking about lately.
Exactly. Just yesterday was all GPT this, generative AI that, and now, boom, it's all agents, agents,
It's
agents.
definitely the new buzzword. And the predictions are, well, they're pretty huge. Transforming work, daily life,
Yeah,
the whole shebang.
right. You see it everywhere. Time, Reuters. I even saw NVIDIA's Jensen Huang talking about it. It's this picture of massive automation, huge efficiency gains.
Mm,
But, for you listening, trying to cut through all that noise and just get a handle on what's really happening,
right,
that's the challenge.
totally. And that's exactly what we're aiming for today. We've been digging into this IBM article. It's called AI Agents in 2025, Expectations versus Reality.
Okay.
Came out just this March. And it's got insights from some of their key people. Maryam, Ashoori, Marina, Danilevsky, Vyoma, Gajjar, and Chris Hay.
Got it. So our mission here is basically to filter out the hype, understand what these agents might realistically mean for us, for businesses this year, based on what these IBM folks are saying.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's tackle that big one first. Is 2025 really the year of the AI agent? What's the consensus?
Well, the media narrative is certainly pushing that hard. Like you said, major outlets are all forecasting this huge shift, automation everywhere, productivity skyrocketing.
And it's not just talk, is it? I saw in the notes that IBM did a survey, 1,000 developers.
Yeah, Maryam Ashoori mentions that.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, 99% are either exploring or actually developing AI agents. 99%.
Wow, okay, that's a huge number.
It is. But Ashoori immediately adds a really important caveat.
Which is?
Just because developers are tinkering, experimenting, it doesn't automatically mean we're about to see fully autonomous agents taking over everything. There's a gap there.
Right, okay, that makes sense. Exploration versus deployment.
Yeah.
So how does IBM actually define an AI agent in this piece? What are we talking about?
They define it as software, right? But software that can act on its own. So it understands a goal you give it, it can make a plan, and then it can actually execute that plan.
Okay.
And they're powered by large language models, LLMs, and crucially, they can interact with other tools, other systems to get things done.
So it's definitely a step up from, say, your standard chatbot that just answers one question at a time, or those automated emails you get.
Exactly. The key difference is that initiative, that autonomy. You give it the high-level goal and it figures out the steps. But Ashoori, again, brings it back to earth a bit. She says that what we're mostly seeing called agents right now,
Hmm.
they're often LLMs with some, let's say, fairly basic planning abilities and this function calling.
A function caller.
Yeah, it basically lets the AI use external tools or APIs
Mm.
so it can break down a more complex task into smaller pieces and use those tools. It's clever, but maybe not fully autonomous reasoning yet.
Okay, but not everyone is quite so cautious, right? Chris Hayes seems more bullish.
Yeah, Chris Hay is definitely more optimistic. He thinks the models we have right now are actually good enough to build these future agents. He sees the foundation as being already there.
Interesting contrast. So Ashoori is drawing a line between the current market buzz and true autonomy with real reasoning.
Right. And Vyoma Gajjar sort of adds to that. She agrees agents can do useful things now, analyze data, automate some workflows.
Mm-hmm.
But for truly complex decisions, especially handling weird edge cases or understanding deep context, she thinks we need some big leaps forward still.
Okay. And then there's Marina Danilevsky, who seems, well, even more skeptical. She questioned if it's just rebranding.
Yeah, that was a really interesting point you made. Is agents just a new fancy word for orchestration?
Orchestration, like
Oh.
coordinating different software pieces.
Exactly. It's a concept that's been around in programming for ages, like a conductor leading different sections of the orchestra to play together. She's basically asking, is this AI doing coordination fundamentally new or just a new label?
That's a fair question. And she had other concerns too, didn't she? About ROI and...
Yes. She pointed out that we still don't have super clear proof of return on investment for general LLM tech yet, which makes going all in on agents maybe a bit premature.
Right.
And she used the word terrifying when talking about the idea of agents just making decisions completely on their own.
Okay. Terrifying definitely grabs your attention.
It does. And she also brought up a very human problem.
Yeah.
We're often not very good at explaining exactly what we want. How can an agent do the right thing if we can't give it clear instructions?
That's a really practical point. But despite all that skepticism, Chris Hay is still enthusiastic about 2025.
Oh, yeah. He sees it as a huge year for experimentation. He points to all the big tech companies, startups like Salesforce with their Agentforce platform. There's a lot of activity, a lot of building and testing happening.
So the takeaway seems to be maybe 2025 isn't the year of the fully realized autonomous agent taking over, but it's definitely the year where the groundwork is being seriously laid and the experiments are ramping up.
I think that's a good summary. Lots of exploration, lots of building, lots of figuring out what these things can actually do.
Okay, that sets the stage well. Now let's move to the second big narrative. This idea that agents will soon handle really complex tasks all by themselves, minimal human needed. How realistic is that, according to these experts?
Well, again, Chris Hay is pretty optimistic here. He argues that current models have the key ingredients. He points to four big developments over the last, say, 12, 18 months.
Okay, what are they?
Better, faster, smaller models, first off.
Yeah.
Then something called chain of thought training. Third, much bigger context windows, how much information the model can hold at once. And fourth, that function calling capability we mentioned earlier.
Right. So how do those four things together enable more complex autonomous tasks?
Okay, so function calling lets the AI use tools, right? Like accessing a database or sending an email.
Got it.
Chain of thought training helps it reason step by step, kind of like thinking out loud. Bigger context windows mean it can remember more of the conversation or the task details so it doesn't get lost.
Makes sense.
And the models just being generally better, faster, and cheaper makes the whole process more feasible. Hay believes these pieces combined give agents the power to plan, reason, use tools, and basically tackle much bigger problems autonomously.
That does sound like a recipe for more powerful agents. But I'm guessing, based on the last section, not everyone fully agrees with that timeline.
You guessed correctly. Maryam Ashoori, again, draws that distinction between promise and current reality. She'd say, yeah, for simple stuff, like picking the right API to call, agents are getting there.
Okay.
But for really sophisticated, multi-step, nuanced problems, she thinks the tech still needs to mature quite a bit.
And Marina Danilevsky's point about context probably applies here, too.
Absolutely. Just because an agent works well for, I don't know, booking travel, doesn't mean you can just point it at complex financial modeling and expect the same success. She really questions this idea of agentizing everything without thinking critically about suitability.
Right. It's not a magic bullet for every problem.
Exactly. And Vyoma Gajjar adds a really crucial layer here. Risk and governance.
Ah, yes.
As these agents move from just generating text to actually doing things, potentially complex things, the need for safety checks becomes paramount. She talks about rigorous testing in sandboxes.
Like safe, isolated environments.
Precisely. Also having rollback mechanisms, an undo button, basically, and detailed audit logs to see exactly what the agent did, especially in high-stakes areas like healthcare or finance.
That seems absolutely critical. You wouldn't want an agent going rogue with sensitive data or operations.
No kidding.
Right.
Though Gajjar is optimistic we'll see good progress on these safety aspects in 2025, she stresses they can't be an afterthought. Imagine an agent making thousands of stock trades based on faulty reasoning. You need guardrails.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, though, even Chris Hay, who's optimistic about the models, pointed out a different bottleneck, didn't he? About organizations being ready.
That's right. He made the point that most companies aren't really agent-ready yet. To let agents do useful work, companies need to expose their internal data and systems via APIs.
Ah, so the tech might be getting there, but the plumbing inside companies needs to catch up.
Kind of, yeah. It suggests the challenge isn't just the AI's intelligence, but also the enterprise infrastructure and willingness to integrate these agents deeply.
So readiness is as much about the organization as it is about the AI itself.
That seems to be a key takeaway.
Okay, moving on. If we do end up with lots of specialized agents, how do we manage them? This brings us to narrative 3, the idea of AI orchestrators, like manager AIs.
Exactly. These Uber models are orchestrators that would manage teams of specialist agents, coordinate the workflow, make sure everyone's working towards the same project goal.
Is this something the experts see happening soon, like in 2025?
Vyoma Gajjar thinks this is very credible, even likely. She envisions these orchestrators becoming maybe the backbone of enterprise AI this year.
The backbone! Wow.
Yeah, connecting different agents, optimizing how they work together, handling all sorts of data flowing between them.
That sounds potentially powerful, but also potentially complex to manage in itself.
Definitely. And Gajjar immediately flags the need for strong compliance frameworks alongside this.
Compliance, governance again.
Always. She emphasizes you need that balanced scale up. Innovate fast, yes, but you have to ensure accountability and responsibility are built in. Data and AI governance aren't optional extras, They're fundamental.
Makes sense. What about Chris Hayes' view on orchestration?
He sees it slightly differently, or perhaps adds a nuance. He imagines orchestrators working with multiple, smaller agents, maybe handling more constrained, specific tasks initially.
Okay.
But he also predicts this interesting push and pull as individual agents get smarter and more versatile.
Maybe we won't need the orchestrator as much.
Potentially. He thinks we might see a shift back towards single, really capable, godlike agents, as he puts it, that can handle more end-to-end. Though, crucially, he still sees humans staying in the loop, overseeing things.
So maybe a temporary phase of multi-agent orchestration, followed by more powerful single agents, or maybe both existing together.
It sounds like he sees it as a dynamic evolution,
Yeah.
not necessarily one replacing the other permanently.
And Maryam Ashoori, does she think we need these big orchestrators?
Her take is interesting. She suggests maybe a dedicated meta-orchestrator isn't always necessary.
Oh.
Ideally, she thinks individual agents should be smart enough to figure out when they need to coordinate or use a tool or access data themselves.
So orchestration becomes more of a distributed capability and architectural choice rather than a top-down command structure?
Kind of, yeah. Though she does concede that if you're combining very different, highly specialized agents, then yeah, having an orchestrator agent to manage that interaction could be very useful.
Okay. And Marina Danilevsky, bringing it back to strategy.
Always. Her advice to businesses is, first, figure out which workflows actually make sense to turn into agentic processes. Understand the potential ROI. Then build your AI strategy.
Don't just jump on the bandwagon.
Exactly. She warns against being that hammer in search of a nail. Don't just apply agents everywhere because it's the hot new tech. Focus on real business needs where they can demonstrably add value.
Solid advice. Okay, final narrative. How will these agents interact with us, the human workers? The hope is augmentation, not replacement, right? Despite the fears.
That's definitely the optimistic vision, and the one most experts seem to lean towards, at least for the near term. Maryam Ashoori strongly believes in empowering employees, meaning letting people decide how agents can help them, not just imposing them as replacements. She gives examples like, sure, use an agent for meeting transcription and summaries, great use case.
Yeah, that'd be handy.
But for situations needing nuanced human interaction, empathy, complex judgment, agents aren't there and maybe shouldn't be.
Marina Danilevsky seems to agree on keeping humans central.
Yes, she talks about a human in the loop, or HITL model. The AI helps, assists, provides information, maybe drafts things, but the human makes the final call, has the final authority. She does expect some growing pains as we integrate these tools, though. Humans will still be needed for the tricky stuff the AI can't handle.
And Chris Hay, how does he see the human-AI relationship?
He frames it very positively. AI done right should augment us, make our jobs better, free us up from tedious tasks to do more interesting strategic work.
That's the dream scenario.
It is. But he does add a little warning note. There's a potential risk down the line where humans end up just augmenting the AI, doing the bits the AI can't yet manage.
Flipping the script. That's less appealing.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Vyoma Gajjar also talked about reshaping work, right? Not replacing jobs overnight.
Exactly. She sees it as automating repetitive tasks, freeing people for more strategic thinking. But she stresses this won't just happen automatically in a good way. We need intentional introduction of AI.
Intentional.
Meaning thoughtful planning, and again, those governance frameworks focusing on fairness, transparency, accountability. You can't just let it loose and hope for the best.
Makes total sense. Chris Hay also mentioned something about open source and marketplaces.
Yeah, that was a cool idea. He thinks the rise of open source AI could lead to an AI agent marketplace.
Like an app store, but for AI agents.
Sort of. Where individuals or small teams could build specialized agents, share them, maybe even monetize them. It could open up opportunities for people to build whole new kinds of companies.
That's exciting. Democratizing AI development. And he had one more point about accessibility.
Yes, about the potential impact in places with low internet bandwidth.
How so?
Because many LLMs can interact via simple text, like SMS. So even without fast internet, people could potentially access powerful information tools, agents that provide knowledge, maybe even job opportunities, just through basic text messaging.
Wow, that could be genuinely transformative for underserved regions.
It really highlights the potential for broad positive impact if developed thoughtfully.
Okay, so bringing this all together, as we wrap up this deep dive, wow, a couple of themes just kept coming up again and again from all four experts.
Let me guess. governance, and strategy.
You got it. Absolutely critical. It feels like you can't talk about agents responsibly without talking about governance and strategy.
For sure. On governance, Vyoma Gajjar was clear. You need frameworks to monitor performance, ensure accountability. It's non-negotiable.
And Maryam Ashoori gave that stark example, an agent accidentally deleting crucial data.
Yeah, chilling. It just highlights why you need transparency, know what the agent is doing, and traceability to be able to track its actions.
Marina Danilevsky's point about technology not being responsible really hit home too.
Right. The tech itself isn't good or bad, but the speed and scale of AI just amplify the risks massively. And she and Chris Hay both agreed.
Humans are ultimately accountable.
Exactly. The people and organizations deploying the AI will be held responsible for what it does, which is why Danilevsky also urged experiment to take, yes, but be very careful about which models you use and what data you feed them.
So governance is paramount.
Okay.
And then there's strategy. Why does that matter so much?
Well, Danilevsky predicts this current AI frenzy, the sort of FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
Right. She thinks that will eventually calm down as we get a clearer picture of where AI actually works best. We'll move beyond the hype.
And Vyoma Gajjar stressed integrating agents properly.
Yes, into the whole ecosystem, so they can keep learning and actually deliver long-term efficiency, not just be a flashy demo.
Danilevsky's hammer in search of a nail warning comes back here too.
Definitely. Focus on the business need first. Then see if an agent is the right tool. Don't just adopt the tech for tech's sake.
And Chris Hay had advice for businesses on data.
Yeah, get your house in order. Organize your private data so agents can actually use it effectively to research internal knowledge. That's where he sees a lot of the real ROI coming from.
Right. Unlock that internal value.
And finally, Maryam Ashoori really framed agents as the big opportunity now. After a year or so of playing with generative AI, agents are the key, she thinks, to really leverage proprietary data and existing workflows to differentiate, to scale, and actually maximize the ROI from all this AI investment.
So agents are where the rubber meets the road for generative AI's business value.
That seems to be her perspective.
Okay. And for you listening, if you want to go even deeper, the IBM article mentions Maryam Ashoori has a guide on agentic AI cost analysis.
Yeah, and Vyoma Gajjar and Chris Hay talk more about their predictions on IBM's own Mixture of Experts podcast. We'll definitely put links to those in the show notes for you.
Great. So wrapping up, the big takeaway seems to be that AI agents in 2025 are, well, complicated, more nuanced than the headlines suggest.
Absolutely. It looks like a year of intense experimentation, figuring out augmentation, not necessarily instant replacement, and everything hinges on getting the governance and strategy right.
Hopefully after listening today, you feel better equipped to follow the conversation, to understand the difference between what's possible now versus what's still on the horizon.
You should have a better sense of the different expert viewpoints shaping how this technology evolves.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. Considering how much emphasis these experts placed on being ready, having your data organized, having governance in place, thinking strategically, what concrete steps could you or perhaps your organization start taking right now to prepare for this future where AI agents are likely to become much more integrated into how we work and live?
Something to think about.